So today we are going to be stripping a standard Wirehaired Dachshund, and this guy has amazing coat. He has excellent coat. This is my dog. He's a little bit chubby, but don't worry about it. So you can see he has a lot of hair we need to get rid of. I've been growing him out specifically for this so that we can do a nice transformation. Like I said, he has a wonderful, very rough coat. The only issue I have with it is that when it gets this long, sometimes it can break if I'm using the wrong tools. So I do have to be a little more careful with that. But otherwise, we are going to pull about 2/3 out of him today, maybe a little bit more. So we're going to leave a little bit behind, but we're going to pull most of this because we really want to get all this dead hair off this dog. So I'm going to be using these rubber finger thimble things. I really like these ones. These are from Artero. You can kind of cut them if you need to. I generally cut the thumb one because they don't really fit. And then here's an Artero coarse knife and a diamond stripping stone. I'll be flipping between tools, kind of depending. But I do just want to start just by using my fingers. I just show you that you don't need tools if you don't want to use them. You can just get away with these rubber fingers and a little bit of powder if you want. It is very important that we hold the skin nice and tight with one hand while we strip with the other. There is no reason to be leaving a bunch of flappy skin. The reason we want to hold that skin nice and tight is it just gives a little bit more tension, and it's more comfortable for the dog as we pull the hair out. Now you can see we're not stripping every hair out. That is, we are trying to leave a little bit behind so that we have more to work with when we grow our next layer. So now I'm going to flip to a diamond stripping tool, and keeping my wrist nice and straight, my elbow and my fingers and thumb are the only things that are moving, my wrist is not. And then holding that skin nice and tight with my other hand. Doesn't matter where you are on the dog, the skin always has to be taut when you're hand stripping. You can pretty clearly see the difference in coat color here. That just kind of shows you what you need to pull out and what you can leave behind. So just another quick example of holding the skin nice and tight. You can see the skin doesn't move, whereas here when I let the skin kind of hang loose, you can see how much snapback we have and how the dog almost gets a little uncomfortable. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure no matter where we are on the dog that we hold that skin nice and tight as we're stripping. Here we're going to be working on his side. Now when we do this, because we're leaving about 1/3 of the coat behind, it's going to look a little bit patchy, especially when we have a dog that has banded coat, so a wild boar. This definitely shows the color difference pretty significantly, and it can look a little bit like, oh. So if you don't want that, you can go ahead and take your fine stripping knife and you can pick up any of the hairs that you've left behind. So I'm going to work down his top line now and do as much as I can when he's in his comfort position, which is laying down. Ideally, you do want your dogs to be laying down when you're stripping them, especially pets. If it's not possible, it's not possible, but really encouraging them to lay down can make the whole thing go a lot easier for both you and the dog. So here I'm going to use a fine knife in this area because I don't want to have to go back a bunch of times. But you can see he's a little bit uncomfortable, so I'm gonna give him a second, and he's still telling me that he doesn't quite like that. And now he's moved enough. I'm gonna scooch him back, but I'm also gonna take that to heed. So I'm gonna switch tools to my diamond stripping knife, and that way, even though he's facing a slightly different direction, I'm still pulling the coat out without breaking it. If you pull the coat out with a stripping knife and you're pulling even at a slight angle, there's a very high chance of you cutting the coat, and then you're just wasting your time. So making sure that you're aware of how the coat is coming out of the dog is also very important. Moving down the legs and feet, if you were showing, ideally you'd want the dog to actually be standing when you work on the legs, just so you can make sure you're filling any conformational faults. However, this is just my pet, and I just want to get 2/3 of this hair off his legs without pulling them all the way down. So I use my fingers to brush up the coat. You can also use a terrier palm pad or a comb if you'd like. I wouldn't recommend using a slicker brush, but you can just brush the coat up with your fingers and then just pull the longest hairs that are sticking off. So you can see what we've gotten done when he's in his comfort position. And we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward because we still have a long way to go. Flipping to just my fingers at this point because I find this area, especially with this dog, to be very difficult to get a knife in. It's just hard to maneuver, so this is easier for both of us, just pulling a few hairs at a time while he's on his side or on his tummy, whichever he prefers. And again, with this coat, making sure that I'm keeping the skin nice and taut no matter where I'm pulling on the dog. So working on his head now, with most breeds what I'll do is I'll just kind of bulk off the areas that I know I'm going to be pulling most of that hair off anyways. So for him, for Dachshunds, that's the back skull. The whole skull should be very, very tight with not a ton of hair. So I'm just going to pull all this off and then I'll refine his eyebrows and his cheeks a little bit later. I'm supporting his head just by gently letting him rest his head on my jaw, rest his jaw on my hand. And I'm not holding his mouth closed at all. All I'm doing is just supporting his jaw with my hand and not allowing him to shake his neck around or anything like that. Because he was a little uncomfortable there, I've flipped over down here. I'm working on all this neck stuff that needs to come off, and I'm actually giving him some smoochies right here. So this dog, I'm actually able to pull his bum hair. Some dogs you can, some dogs you can't. If you're working on a pet, use your discretion. But for him, I am able to just kind of pluck those little hairs away. And we are all finished. He's had more than enough, and so have I. So we've pulled about 2/3 off of him. You can see the little bit I've left. His legs aren't naked, and he's still got a magnificent beard. And now, as he grows, the longest hairs we've left behind will be the next layer that we need to pull, and then we'll just rotate, pulling 1/3 at a time from there on. And always make sure you give him a pet after. Make it a good experience.